Victoria.
Hey, Hope.
I am very excited because today I get to live out my younger dreams of being a journalist and interview you.
That is a very exciting thing. I know this didn't become a reality for you, but I am really excited for you to be able to live your dream.
I thank you. Thank you for facilitating this. No, I really do think that it's going to be a good episode. So we're basically going to do a 2-part series, and they're going to be kind of like mini-sodes depending on how much we talk, which everyone knows could be a lot. But I'm going to interview all about what it's been like to be, and the differences between being a worker in the U.S. and then now abroad. Which is a little Spain specific, but we hope that it could translate larger. I think it's one of those things where like sometimes you just crave somebody's individual experience and you have to suspend disbelief that, you know, there are differences, but I think it will be helpful generally. And then in a future episode, you're going to interview me about being a parent here.
Yes, which I'm also very excited about because there are tons of differences. And I'm not a parent, but even talking to you and like hearing your stories and seeing everything, I've even noticed that there's differences and I'm not even in that position. So I'm excited. And because I think that part is also translatable. Obviously, there's culture in everything and you need to consider all of that. But there's a lot of things that are translatable no matter where you go into any new country and things to think about. I think that's another thing. Like I'll talk more about, you know, things to think about when applying to jobs and all of that. And you'll do the same thing about being a parent.
And I think you also have the opportunity to talk to, like, you work with parents a lot too. So I think in this particular episode, you'll also hear about what it's like for you as an individual without kids right now, but also the people you work with and how their lives are fuller in many cases because of the protections afforded to people in Europe. So are you ready?
I am ready. I'm excited.
All right, let's get into it. Question number 1. What are the biggest differences in work culture, like work-life balance, expectations, and office dynamics?
Ooh, okay. So to give a little context, when we moved here, I looked for a job. So I did find my job here while I was in Spain. So I didn't move over with my job, which is different, I think, a little bit because I had to start completely from scratch with a whole new company, whole new like set of coworkers, which is a bit different than, like, for example, my husband, Chris, who moved over and was working with the same people, just in a different location. So it depends on your situation. But for me, the biggest differences, which I noticed pretty much immediately, I would have to say, is so when I started end of August 2021. Let me get the date correctly. And I'm gonna start with like work-life balance as being the thing that I noticed pretty quickly between at least the US and Spain. Was I got 10 days. So it was prorated, which is hilarious because my last company that I worked for in the US, I got 10 days for the whole year. So I was prorated from end of August to January with 10 days. And for me, I'm like, okay, well, I just started. Like, I can't possibly take a vacation the first, like, 3 months, like, at least. Like, that's a no-no. I guess, like, it's ingrained in your brain. At least anybody who knows, like, working in the U.S. was like, no, you don't do that unless you, like, tell them before you start. So I remember I was like, well, this 10 days, great. Just, I don't need them right now. So, yeah, they just exist. So I get to December and I haven't taken any of them. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll take like one around Christmas because the holidays. And right before, I believe it was right before the holidays, we did like a team dinner, no, a team lunch. It was a lunch. And we went out to lunch and we're sitting all together and like still getting to know everyone. And it's like COVID, it's still like the end of COVID. So like going back to the office is like weird. It's just a weird time. And so we're sitting around and we're discussing, and it's like probably the first or second time I've met everyone in person. And we started talking about vacation and whatnot. And I was like, oh yeah, I still have like a few days I have to take. I guess I have to take them before the end of January because then I lose them. And I haven't taken any of them yet. And I think it was like all of them were like, what do you mean you haven't taken any of them yet? Like, don't start making us look bad because you come over here, like, aren't taking your vacation.
Get out of here with your American work ethic. Like, you're ruining it for everybody.
Yeah, like, it was so funny. Like, the response I got of it, I was like, oh, I guess I need to take these. And I was so uncomfortable having to take these 10 days because I felt like I had just been there for a minute. And, like, who do I think I am taking these 10 days? Like, the first 6 months, 3 to 6 months of starting my job. So that was the first indicator that I'm like, oh, something's different.
Just like hearing you and thinking about it like culturally, I think it's that people here, I feel like a misconception I've heard in the US is like, oh, people in Europe don't work as hard because you have this American mentality of you need to prove how dedicated you are. And that means maybe taking less vacation days or always being available. And I think the difference is here, people work really hard, they're really passionate, but built into the system is like, this is just a fact. Like, you wouldn't necessarily in most jobs work on the weekends. Here, you wouldn't not take your vacation days. So it's more of a level playing field versus in the US, I feel like the playing field is not established. So like you come in and you have to show how much you're committed.
Yeah, exactly. And that I would 100% agree with that. So what I've learned is people work really hard. Like every single person that I've worked with like kills themselves. They're working, and sometimes they work overtime. Like it's not like people don't work in Spain. That's not true at all. False thing that people say, like I see on like Instagram comments and all of that on social media, like, oh yeah, well they just don't work there. That is not true at all. They work really hard. It's just they really value vacation, and they value that time that you disconnect. When you're off, you're off. And I haven't ever been expected from my manager or anyone I've worked with, when I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. They're not bothering me. They're expecting that I've disconnected, and that's my time. I can take 2 weeks, I can take 3 weeks. I've seen people take a whole month like off. So I think the biggest change that I would say is the work-life balance. I have really embraced it since 2021. And yeah, I really love that they allow space to work hard, but also that relaxing time. Or I personally don't have kids, but I see with other people when they have kids, they're very, very respectful of that difference. And a lot of people I work with have kids. And if you're sick, if you have something like a procedure or whatever, in personal experience, I had one. I had a procedure, and I remember it was a no-brainer. It was like, yeah, take what you need, take the time, checked in like separately, like just a completely different way. Not that people in the US don't care, because that is not true at all. Like I've had managers that cared a lot in the US. It's just a different mentality about when you're off. You're not dinged for it. You're just off. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not meant to be like bringing you down, or look what Victoria did. She took 3 weeks off. It's just, no, she took time with her family.
I think it's also a different mental load as a manager because you now have a direct report. And I think it's the idea that you don't have to fight your manager, or like you said, there's a lot of caring people in the US when it comes to their team, but sometimes it feels like they have to like fight for you to get that time off. And here, I think it's a relief where you know that the company, that's the culture. And it's not just like, you have to find a startup that has ping pong tables. It's like everywhere that you're going to go has this like legal established respect for time off if you need it or if you want it, and leisure or necessity.
And I realized that people don't take advantage of it, at least that I've seen, that it's just part of how they are. And another part I really, really liked, and I can talk more about it probably in other questions that come up, is when you work overtime. So, I do work overtime. I've seen a lot of people in my company. I'm sure many people do. This is the Spanish law. And again, these are laws. I think a lot of the time that's the biggest difference, is that the company is following the law in Spain. And the law is that you have to log your hours. And if you work overtime, either they have to pay it out to you at the end of the year, or you have to take it as vacation. But you can't just work overtime without any type of compensation. So usually I take it as extra vacation days, but you could at the end of the year get paid out for the extra hours that you've done. But they do keep track, and they try to get you to take the extra time off to balance out the extra hours, which that is not a thing in the US.
That is very true. That is not a thing I experienced, but I'm sure somewhere.
I'm sure, I'm not saying Spain is the only place by any means, but that's my experience here. And those are the biggest difference. I'd say work-life balance, and just like you said, it's built into the system.
Is there anything in the office dynamics that you would want to comment on? Or is it like the same? Like whether you're in an American office or a European office, it's all an office?
It's an office. I mean, again, my last company in the US, I didn't really go into the office that often. But I mean, it's a similar office dynamic. I mean, same vibes. The only difference I would say is I work now for a global company, whereas in the US, I worked for more of a national company. So it's pretty awesome to work with people from all over. But the dynamics are pretty similar, I would say. People actually, the only difference is people love their lunch and they really do value that hour lunch break. And like they will go out and take a whole hour. Like they will go out, they'll eat. They have a menu al dia, like around the office, and they have different menus that are like for the day, and they have like a starter, a what's it called, a primary meal, and a dessert all built in for one price, which is really, really nice for lunch. So they have that around the office because people do go out to lunch, whereas not that people don't in the US, but I do think it's more of a culture where you could bring your work, your lunch to your desk and work while you eat kind of thing.
Yeah, or it's like the Mad Men version of like, yes, we're gonna all go out to lunch and have a scotch. It's like not your regular day to day.
Exactly.
It's like a thing of the past where people like did it, but this is more like you actually make connections, which is actually another one of the questions. Did you find it easier or harder to make professional connections abroad?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like it all depends on the people. It depends. And I've made connections, really great connections in the US, and I've also made really great connections here. I don't necessarily think I found one easier than the other. I just think they're different. And like I said, it's a global environment. So I'm meeting people from all over and I'm working with people from all over. Some people that are in the office, some people that are, working from the US or working from Asia or wherever they are. And I feel like you do have to be aware, if you haven't worked at a global company before, of different cultures and the way that people are influenced by their cultures, and they work differently. They have a different mindset, and being open to that, I would say. But if you're willing to be open to that, and I have read a really good book called The Culture Map that was really helpful in understanding the different work dynamics and communication dynamics between different cultures, which is super interesting and highly recommend if you're working at a global company, because it really gives you insight. So I don't know if that answers it, but
no, it does. I also think that's part of it though, right? Like not everything is different, and that's also helpful to know, because sometimes when you're thinking about moving, you're like, my whole life will be different, and it's like a lot of it is different, but sometimes things are the same, which is nice. Yeah. It's comforting.
And also, to give context, I do work at a U.S. company. It's the Spain office, and it is different, obviously, working in different offices, but there is still that corporate is U.S. based, so I'm sure that does have some influence in some capacity. So like if someone was working at a Spain based company, it might be different. They might have a slightly different experience than me.
That's fair. Although your company is a US company, you have a Spanish salary. So can you talk a little bit to how that compares to the US?
Yes, so my salary is definitely a lot lower.
Plot twist.
Just what it is. My salary is lower. So I do have a Spanish contract. Like I said, I got the job here as a Spanish, resident. And yeah, so that made me really nervous at first. And even for Chris, to give you context, not just myself, like his salary was dropped from what he had in the US and got moved here. We're not expats in the sense that like our salaries are like, we're moved here and stayed the same, which would have been lovely. But yeah, so it did make me nervous at the beginning because I'm like, oh my God, I'm making less money. What do I need? It's really hard to look for a job and not know what to ask for salary wise, and what you need to like live here properly. So I think that was the hardest part. But honestly, I have to say that when it comes to looking for a job at a different salary, the only thing that I did and I made sure of is that, can I live the same way and save money? That was the most important thing to me and to Chris, my husband, that we were able to live the same way or better and still save money the way that we were saving money in the US. So if we were able to do that, and then eventually, you can increase your salary over time, obviously, then we were happy. And because the cost of living is lower here, we felt like we were able to do that. And we were able to, less salary, but still able to, honestly, to argue with that, like I would say that we do more than we did when we lived in the US. We go out more, we eat out more, we kind of do more social things that we wouldn't have been able to maybe afford in the US now.
There's lots of different benefits. Like you could talk to what Chris has with the restaurant card too.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I can do this. It's a little different.
But for Chris,
He has, yeah. So his company has a specific like ticket restaurant card, that they give him money every single month that they put on there, that he can use at any restaurant. You can even use it grocery shopping. It's a benefit. There is something else that some companies do here. A lot of companies that you can take it out of your like pre-taxed like amount from your salary. You can say I want a certain amount that goes onto a specific like card, and you can use it the same way. So it kind of saves you money because it's like pre-tax dollars. So they do offer these types of benefits. Some companies give it to you like Chris's company, just like a ticket restaurant card. Or you can do it like pre-tax and put it on a card and it saves you some money. You can also do that with transportation as well.
In case like people don't know, it's not to a specific restaurant.
No,
it's like just, yeah, it's basically like a Visa gift card type of thing where like if you're doing, like we said, those work from home lunches, because I think like especially like Chris, Trevor, like they will do like a working lunch sometimes, but it's a nice benefit to be able to like order something, or like you said, you could even use it at the grocery store to be able to like have that. It's just a nice consideration for work from home employees.
Exactly. And it's funny because Trevor and Chris work at the same company. Both of our husbands work not together, but at the same company. So Hope knows a lot about the benefits of what we're talking about. But yeah, so I would say the initial question was what financial differences. So yeah, that's a good plus if you have that. But generally speaking, that was the biggest consideration I had. Can I live the same way? And even though it's really shocking at first because the salary is significantly lower, once I got more comfortable over time and I started looking at our finances as a whole, I realized that actually we were okay. We can live this way and be and still save money and still be enjoying ourselves and traveling and all of that,
well, for
which is good.
Too, what's the difference between how many days you had off? And I know it's company to company, but like in the U.S., at your last job, how many days did you have? How many days off do you get now?
I had 10 a year in the U.S., which is just 2 weeks. And now I have 25 days off. Plus, there's about 14 holidays in Barcelona a year. Plus, if I work overtime, I can use that and take extra time as well. So yeah, it's big difference. So that part I would say is amazing. And also that's because of the law as well. I think there's a federal, like with Spain government minimum of, I think it's 22. Because my company does 22 vacation days and they do 3 personal days that you can use as like how you want to use them as well. That's so awesome. It ends up being 25 together.
I think also some people might be listening and they're like, well, my company has unlimited PTO. And again, it's a cultural difference because I remember reading about this, that unlimited PTO does not necessarily equate with more vacation because people don't feel comfortable taking it and they don't know because there's like not necessarily a norm, like can I take 3 weeks off to do this? And I think the most important part, there's like the actual tangible benefit of more days, but there's also like a culturally backed insistence almost that you take those days, which I think is huge.
You have to. I mean, if I don't take all my vacation by the end of the year, my manager will reach out to me because HR is tracking and making sure I take them. So if I get to the point that I have too many, they will come and ask me, why haven't you taken your days?
I think that's my ideal job. If I go back into the workforce, I'm going to be the person who's like, you take a day for you. It's my whole job.
Truly, like, but that's part of the thing, which is an incredible thing that I haven't experienced. Like, you have to take your vacation. You just do.
That's so funny. I think that it is such a difference when you're thinking of like the work you've typically done versus the work you're going to do and figuring out what's important to you. But I think for you guys especially, like the travel piece was really big. So that has been, I think I've seen it, like your life has gotten bigger because of that, which I love for you.
Yeah. Traveling and that's another part that we can talk on another episode, but being able to travel within Europe as a whole is a little easier to go to different countries at least.
That's fair. Do you have anything surprising, like working abroad, that you think Americans would find surprising?
Yes. So I think in the US, everything is connected to your benefits. So it's like, oh, what benefits do I have? Like my 401k, are they matching my healthcare? How good is the healthcare? What do they cover? What don't they cover? You have to like look at all these details, which not that it's not important here, but the fact that I I mean, most companies do offer some sort of private healthcare as well in Spain, and my company does too, and they do have a great private healthcare option. But the surprising thing is that not everything's connected to your benefits. Benefits are like a nice to have here, whereas I think people like live for it more in the US because there's a lot connected to it. Whereas in Spain, since you already get the public healthcare system, which is good, and you automatically have that, you're just like, oh, that is nice to have that, but it's not you're not so tied to your job as you are in the States, if that makes sense. You feel less worried, like, oh, if I lose my job, I'm still covered with healthcare. They have a rule here that the longer you've been at the company, I think it's every year you're there, it's an extra like 30 days of a compensation package they have to give you. So the longer you're at a company, the more protected you are also by the law. There's just certain things that it's just a different feeling when you have a job, I would say.
There's security more in like culture and community than there is in your job specifically.
Exactly. And which makes you feel less concerned about losing your job. Not that you don't want to work hard. Obviously, I still don't want to lose my job, but you feel less like, okay, I need to constantly prove myself, because if I don't, I lose my job, and then I don't have all the basic things that I need, which is a completely different feeling than when you're just working. Not everyone loves their job, but at least you're working towards something because you want to work towards it, not because you feel like you have to, which I have noticed a difference between working with people who still live in the US and their mentality versus the mentality here. So I think that is the biggest difference, and like I felt it internally. Like I felt that difference personally as well, and it's nice. It feels less stressful and anxiety.
I also think like it opens up relationships more with the people that you're working with, because everybody has different perspectives on work. Like I was never somebody who felt super passionate about what I was doing, but like I need money to live, so I worked. But it's one of those things where if you have that mental weight of I need to be doing this because I need to do, I need to send my kid to school. I need to make sure that my sick parent has the things that they need. Like there's a lot of different things that are practical that like you need that for, versus if you're doing your job and you don't feel like your whole life is going to collapse if you lose it. I think you're able to enjoy your coworkers more too. And I think for most people, you're more productive and you have like more creativity when you enjoy yourself at work. And so it kind of like opens up that, like you said, like the lunches, like, yeah, that sounds like maybe fluffy to some people, but I genuinely feel like when you like the people that you're working with, or even if you know them better, because you don't have to be best friends with everybody you work with, but like when you understand each other more as people, you have more empathy, there's like a better collaboration, I think. I just think it benefits everyone to have a situation where you're going to work, hopefully because you're passionate about it, at least partially, and you enjoy the work you're doing.
Exactly. And it allows you the mental space to enjoy it more. Same with taking vacation. It allows you to reset properly to come back and be more productive and more creative and all of that. So that's the biggest surprise. And I think another thing is they have unions, not exactly like a union, but I guess it would be translated to a union, a part of every company. So when they fight for your rights within the company.
Interesting. It's like a union specifically for
company.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the difference between that and HR?
They will go against HR. They're separate. They get voted in. It's a completely different, like, you get voted into being that, and they'll go against HR. They push back. They hear what you want. Last week, I wasn't able to go to it, but they had like a meeting in the office, and it's specifically for Spain, and they'll go back. Like when initially we were going back to the office, I wasn't there for this part, but I heard from other people that they wanted to bring us back 4 days a week, and the union went back against them and actually turned into 3.
Interesting. It's like activism within the company. That's so cool. Now I might do that for my job.
Like it's people that work in the company, and they get like, that's like part, like they get, it's extra. I'm pretty sure they work, don't hold me to that if someone else knows and like I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they are like have a job at the company, and it's like they're voted in as extra. So it's not like someone comes in. They work within it, and I don't know how often they get switched. Kind of, I guess, in a weird way.
Like, do you think they get paid more for that specifically, or
I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I don't have the answer, so I'm not going to speak to it if I don't know.
That's fair. It's just so
I
fascinating.
need to learn more about it. But yeah, it exists. And it's like, maybe it's like a workers' council, maybe. Maybe that's what we would call it, like a workers' council.
Interesting. Or like committees. Different companies have
Yeah.
committees.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like, it's important.
I'm trying to think of the next question to ask you because there's so many good ones. I think also, this one's a really good one. Do you notice a difference in gender dynamics or opportunities for women specifically in the workplace abroad?
I'm going to speak specifically to my company because I think it's a really tough thing to speak fully for Spain. So specifically the company I work for, I think does a really good job with the gender dynamics. I mean, I came working from a company that didn't have many women in the company itself. Not that that was done on purpose. It was a small company. So people had kids, but it was a lot of the men who had kids and all that. So it was a different perspective. Whereas I work with a lot of women in my current company and a lot of women in leadership, which is really amazing to see. With kids, with families that go on maternity leave for a year and come back and are getting promoted. Like, seeing that is so encouraging, especially if you want to have a family at some point. So as a younger individual, seeing if like that's the next step, it's a really nice thing for me to be able to see women in leadership, not only just being in leadership and being able to get there, like high up position, VP roles, director roles. Like my manager, who's a director, is in that position, and also seeing them have families and being able to balance it all and being respected the same exact way for it, and being appreciated that they have to take that time, take 8 months and be off, and that doesn't affect them at all, has been a really nice change. Again, I know that part, like being a parent, I've seen, at least in the workforce, has generally been respected in Spain overall, but specifically in my company, I have seen a lot more women in leadership, and they have committees, encouraging equal, opportunities for everyone, and no gender discrimination and all of that. So they put emphasis on that, and I think between mentors and all of that, was really nice to see as a young professional coming into the company. So yes, I have seen in a positive way a change, specifically in the company I work for within Spain.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to know.
It's great. I'm really happy about that part. I think they do that very well.
I think for the last question to wrap things up is, do you have any advice for anyone, whether they're like interviewing, like you could talk a little bit to, because you, like you said, you got this job specifically in Spain, like you came to Europe, which is not typical of everyone. But for example, and we'll do a whole other episode on visas, but like our husbands came on a highly qualified worker visa, which is different than the digital nomad visa, but either way, and you're European, so it's like a whole different thing for you. I just like got to tag along because of Trevor. But in any case, you were able to come here and then find a job. Is there anything that you would say to people who are trying to do that? Because it's also a little tricky trying to get a job abroad, maybe different.
Yeah, so I would say that the actual process of applying is pretty similar as the US. You can use all the same boards and LinkedIn and all that stuff. So that part's the same. But if you don't speak the language, it's definitely a little bit harder to find a job that they only require English. I would say that if you don't speak, specifically in Spain, if you don't speak Spanish, sometimes they do want English, but they also do want Spanish. So finding a job that's not asking for the second part was a bit challenging. So my job options were more limited, unless I was looking more European-wide. So it really depends on, again, how you're looking and what you're looking for. So that part was a bit difficult, obviously, I would say. But the other part that was hard was knowing what to ask for, salary-wise. So I would recommend doing your research. And if you have any like friends that live there, or you've made friends and building a community, ask them. I know it's like a taboo thing to talk about salary, but I just asked. I asked, hey, like I'm looking for a job. I just need to know like what's a good salary here? Like for this type of like position, what should I be asking for? Like, what's a good livable wage? Like, I knew what Chris made, but it was really hard to just compare off one salary. So I asked like a few people that we knew when I was searching, and it was really helpful because they gave me a good base. They were like, if you make more than this amount, you will be good. You'll be able to save and live like decently. And I was like, okay, like I had a good benchmark of what I could ask for and what I wanted to fight for. So that helped me because that I did struggle, because people would ask, well, what did you make before? And I'm like, well, if I tell you my US salary, I don't think you're gonna match that. They'd be like, no. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. So let's like start over. So yeah, I think that the salary part and the language part are the two pieces that were a bit harder.
And that is like what you said. I think that's what's tricky in the US or wherever you're living. You have an idea generally of like you want to go up and up and up in your trajectory of salary. And so when you come to a new place, you're basing it off of like what is my value to the company, but also what's realistic for being here. And I think that's like a hard circle to square.
Yeah, it's a hard
so there's a
to
lot.
swallow.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and it's emotional too, because I think people have like feelings about financial security and just like what does a number feel like versus what's practical. And I think interrogating that is tough. And I remember us even talking about it. You were like, I know practically that this is a good salary, but it like feels hard. Yeah. And you had to kind of reckon with that a little bit.
Oh yeah, and it took time. So it definitely took time to reconcile with that internally. So.
I think in my dreams, if we were to like build a community around this too, I don't think this exists because I feel like I did a lot of research into like salary, but I would love like an expat community where there's some sort of like anonymous thing where you put in your details, like what your job is, your age, and how much you make, and maybe like a general what part of the place you're living in, because like you said, it is so helpful to talk to people, but sometimes you can't talk to people because you don't know anyone, and also people are like skittish around salaries too, so like they don't always necessarily want to answer that directly. So here's the thing. If you guys come, we will build it because I think that would be an awesome resource to have. Because again, it makes sense. Not everybody wants to tell how much money they make to like strangers. No. Some people are a little more open with it, but like I would love like the opportunity for more people to at least have that conversation, because I do think it's huge.
And I also think that you don't have to ask someone what they make. What I did, because I didn't want them to like run away, was I asked what is a good salary to be making, and I asked for a number to give me. I didn't say what do you make. I said I asked more generally, so that does help in the meantime. But yes, that would be the dream.
Yeah, and also that's another big thing, right? Yeah. Like your job on top of your entire life changing is a lot, and if you are lucky enough to come over with an existing company, you really have a leg up, because that's not a part of your life that's going to change necessarily. The hours might, that's a whole other thing, because sometimes when you move to a new place, you feel like a little bit of like B team energy because everybody else is on a different time zone. And even though there might be considerations of moving meetings or recording meetings, you feel not as engaged with everybody at the same time. So there's a lot of big feelings that have to do with work, but yes. I think this was helpful to at least get like a little insight into working abroad, and I think that's helpful and people will really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love if you consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And for more content, you can find us on our YouTube channel or on socials like TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook at either Your Favorite Exes or Your Favorite Expats. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to tell us your thoughts in the comments, DM us, or shoot us an email at yourfavoriteexpats@gmail.com.